Making Chicken Salad this week is brought to you by 3 Count Pro Wrestling Academy. Are you in Brisbane and thought about learning to be a wrestler? Well, here's your chance. 3 Count Pro Wrestling Academy are based out of Beenleigh in Queensland, and they're committed to teaching the best, safest way to learn the art of professional wrestling. Hit up their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or email admin@3countfitness.com now to register your interest, and we thank them so much for supporting the show.
Here I was, blaming AEW for feeding you chicken shit, knowing you mindless millennials would be eating it up as if it were chicken salad, when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does, that's all there is to it. But a square peg in a round hole just never seems to fit, and you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Hello and welcome to Making Chicken Salad, a Wrestle Radio Australia podcast. I'm Lachlan Albert, and as always, we're here to discuss the goings-on in the international wrestling scene, what's happening in WWE, AEW, and all of those other big international promotions. With me, as always, Queensland's best manager ever, Todd Eastman. Todd, how you doing, man?
How you going, mate? I don't like the fact that you've limited me to just Queensland. I like to think I'm nationwide, but
sure,
I'll take it.
You can think whatever you like, Todd.
I see. Okay, starting early. I get it.
Yeah. Oh, we got to get in. We got to get those riffs in. All right. Look, let's jump into it because it has been a huge fortnight, and we want to get through a lot of big stories very quickly. Starting with AEW, with one of, yeah, that's right, one of the biggest pay-per-view events of all time happened right after we recorded, AEW's All Out 2021. So let's start with some quick reactions. So I'll go through a couple of big matches off the top of my head. Tell us what you think of them. Number one, the match on everyone's between Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks. Lucha Brothers victorious, earning the AEW tag team titles. What was your opinion on that match, Todd?
It was a really good match. I don't know so much about people saying it's the best cage match ever or that sort of stuff, but I mean, it was. I'm not going to deny it was a really good match, but it was just
a great match.
It was just sort of. It was what it was. It was a Lucha Brothers, Young Bucks, spot in the cage. Really, is what it was, and yeah, I mean, they've done the whole. I like how they're trying to think that this whole the sneaker with the tax on it was revolutionary, where they did it back in PWG.
Oh, they've done it a ton of
years ago. Yeah, so all of that sort of thing. But I don't think it was the best cage match of all time, to be honest. But it was great. It was really good. I
agree. I thought it was a really good match. We all know that I'm biased towards the Lucha Brothers. Love them, have for a long time. So I'm really happy to see them win. I thought it was a really good match. I don't know storyline-wise why you put those belts on the Lucha Brothers. It seems like the Elite being the dominant faction was the story, and now it's just not. For no real reason. I don't know what story the Lucha Brothers have other than potentially losing it back to the Bucks because they've got this weird tag team soulmate opponents thing going on, which I love, but I don't think that it's, the long-term story they need to be telling. So that's a big one. On top of that,
I don't like, I know you love the Lucha Brothers, but it's sort of like the Young Bucks' biggest rivals was FTR. That was what everybody talked about for millennia. Do you know what I mean? I wonder what would happen if these two got in the ring. They've had one tag team match, and that's it. If anything, that should have been one of the stories going. But then again, they built up all these other teams, like they built up, like I said in the last episode, built up Dark Order, they built up Lucha Express, Jurassic Express, and didn't pay them off. They just bang, gone, bang, gone, bang, gone. One of those teams could have been made, but like Jurassic Express could have been made by getting that win. A lot more than just putting Christian with them.
And I don't look, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this probably, but Young Bucks aren't a team that I've ever loved. I've never been a huge Young Bucks guy. I think they're very good. I've seen them live. I like their matches, but they don't make me want to go out of my way to watch what they're doing in wrestling. The way that the Lucha Brothers do, the way that FTR do, the way that Jurassic Express do. I would really love to see more of those teams get the spotlight with the storytelling. And that means that either we build a story around one of those tag teams, or we let the Young Bucks be the opponent that gets beaten by one of those tag teams that aren't already on their tier. Whereas Lucha Brothers versus Young Bucks feels like it's been done.
Not only that, I don't know if you've noticed it, but like when the Young Bucks music and that hit, they're not getting a reaction so much anymore. Do you know what I mean? And like you get a lot more reactions from other workers than what you do those guys when they come out.
We've talked about how AEW is the debut pop company at the moment. So let's talk about that. 3 huge debuts on the show. First of all, as we predicted, the Joker in the the Casino Battle Royale women's match was Ruby Soho, formerly WWE's Ruby Riott, who has gone on to Dynamite to cut a really quite divisive promo against Britt Baker, looking like she's going to be the next challenger for the title.
She is the next challenger.
I said before that I hoped that Ruby would push the AEW creative into giving more time to the women, and it seems like that has been true. The Battle Royale went for about 20 minutes, and I think that having Ruby is a large part of that. I think that the fact that we're getting those in-ring promos on the programming is because the writers respect Ruby as a performer. But I'll be interested to see how long it lasts, because there's been lots of really great women in that company who aren't getting that time.
I mean, one thing that really stood out to me is that I can't remember which show it was. It might have been Dynamite, it might have been Rampage, but they did that 6-girl tag match. It was, I think we even talked about it on the show. It might have been last fortnight. I can't remember off the top of my head. It really stood out to me how much better she is how much more polished she is as a worker than pretty much everyone else that was in that match. And
it goes to show that the WWE performance building for the TV presentation does work.
Oh yeah, exactly. And like her promo yesterday on Rampage was really good. Her and Britt Baker in the ring was really good, and it's going to be a massive that weekend. This coming week is going to be massive for Dynamite and Rampage.
I want to argue about you a little bit on that promo. I am really sick of women's promos in these big companies devolving into you're sleeping with someone in the back. I don't care. I don't care about women's relationships with other wrestlers, especially because it seems to be just about the only story that writers have for women in these companies. I'm finding it really disappointing because, a lot of people in wrestling have relationships with wrestlers. I don't see it as relevant, and I don't think it's necessary to build a feud between women. But that's a thing for me, you know.
No, it's good. At least she didn't. Anyway. At least she didn't say shit. I mean, everyone else said shit on that show.
They do like saying the word shit, don't they?
That last
moving
week,
on to a couple of the other huge debuts that came along.
Sorry, last week's Dynamite should have been called "Welcome to the Shit Show." There was that many. It's like they said, you can say this word tonight, but not just these guys that I normally let. Everyone can say it if they want. Just don't take it too far. So everyone went out there and said
shit, Daddy Khan?
Yeah.
Shit. So moving on to the other debuts that happened at All Out. 2 big WWE defections were Adam Cole aligning himself with the Elite and Daniel Bryan appearing as a challenger for Kenny Omega, and they will be having
Bryan Danielson,
a match on a big episode of Dynamite coming up. Sorry, Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon. Bryan Danielson is All Elite.
Oh, gee. What it almost looked like in the space of 2 minutes, Adam Cole already got forgotten about in that start. This big debut, huge pop, comes out.
You're right.
Burns becomes the bad guy. Next thing you know.
But he's already made Adam Page into the second most important Adam in the company.
Yeah. And it's...
It does feel like the pecking order is just getting toppled.
Yeah, and if you watch, I don't know if you watch the YouTube channel Being the Elite. They did this whole thing where like it's a seance. They did a seance, and that's what brought Adam Cole back alive. But Adam doesn't remember or doesn't know what happened the past X amount of years he was in NXT. So during Being the Elite, he's asking what happened and where. Oh, well, okay, cool, guys. Well, I'm just going to go and catch up with Hangman and have a beer. And they're like, yeah, he's not here.
I actually watched Being the Elite for the first time in a long time, and I thought it was pretty funny, the idea that Adam just didn't know anything. Adam Cole didn't know anything about what had happened while he was in WWE because he was, fighting off death from poisoned energy drink.
Do you know what's also funny about that? Is if you watch ROH, Flip Gordon at the moment is doing the same gimmick, but it's part of the actual wrestling thing. He got a concussion and he forgot about this last X amount of years and was looking for everybody, like the Bucks and all of that stuff, was looking for all of those guys. And he's back doing the whole
That's fantastic.
Flag and everything.
All right, let's quick fire a couple of these. So give me a quick answer. Adam Cole, is it the right choice for him to be heel in AEW? Yes or no?
No, because he's getting a fan pop. And it doesn't matter what he says, he's still getting a fan reaction. He's going up against, he's trying to make baby faces when they love him.
Yep.
I think that was evident from this week's Dynamite.
Absolutely agree. I think that if you want to turn him heel, you have to play into the face role for a bit and then do the turn. That's my opinion. Moving on to another one of these questions, Bryan Danielson, absolutely huge signing. Obviously going to be at the top of the card straight away, but we are getting Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson on Dynamite this coming Wednesday. Is that the right choice to put that match on TV?
It feels very Christian Omega. Like Christian came in, and it wasn't of course it wasn't the very first thing Christian did, but odds are Bryan Danielson's going to win this match because it's a non-title match, and then they might fight on to being to the pay-per-view, because the pay-per-view is not for a month or so, or a couple of months, I think. But it's very same. It seems very same.
It seems like a long-term build-up for an eventual title match between Danielson and Omega. Moving on to some of the other things that happened, let's talk about the Suzuki incident, which is, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. We're fans referring to the Suzuki incident, which is that AEW did not play Minoru Suzuki's music long enough to get to the chorus, which is the bit that everyone loves. And it's now been referenced as the Suzuki incident, as if it's, the Madison Square Garden incident and the curtain call, or as if it's the Montreal screw job. We're now talking about the Suzuki incident. What do you think of that fan upset getting turned into something in the storyline?
Well, I mean, it's not really. If it was a storyline, they wouldn't have paid it off this week already. They would have kept having someone interrupted. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, it's a fun thing. At least it's showing that they're listening to the fans in that respect. Anyway, well, Punk is anyway, because he's the one that brought it up on TV.
Speaking of which, Suzuki Moxley, huge, massive, enormous. Just, I cannot believe that Suzuki is going to be on American television. It's buck wild to me.
But it was a match. Like that first match was It wasn't what they'd done in Japan. It was for what I thought it was going to be. It was underwhelming. But maybe that's just because I had higher expectations. I don't know.
And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Suzuki show up at GCW as well?
Yesterday. He had a match with
and working.
He had a match with Jonathan Gresham, and then after that, Nick Cage came out, and they're going to have and they're going to have a match.
If Nick Cage came out for a match against Minoru Suzuki, that'd be really notable. We'd have to do 3 podcasts about that one.
Well, he's trying to get booked anyway now. Oh, Nick.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm more of a Suzuki protector.
We have to steal the declaration of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So let's talk about Chavo and Andrade. It seems like Andrade has dropped Chavo Guerrero as a manager, but it sounds like the reason that this has happened is because we need to write off Chavo Guerrero to go film Young Rock Season 2. Now, my thoughts on this are that's what's going to happen when you have the number of names you have on AEW, and a lot of those, especially older guys, are trying to push themselves in different industries. It's going to happen more in WWE as we're seeing people go off to make movies, to make TV shows. We're going to see these kind of suddenly this person's turned on this person so that we can write them out. Is that your feeling as well?
Yeah, I think they could have done it better than what they did. The way they've done it seemed very I tweeted about it. It's very, they seem to be leaning into very WWE things that people didn't like or don't like about WWE. But of course, they're not getting called on it just yet because they're a young company and they're learning. But I didn't see the sense at all in because I don't know if you saw. Have you seen it? What happened?
No, I didn't.
No. Okay. So during the match, that unnamed guy, I can't remember what his name is, Jose or something. You know, the other guy that's always behind Andrade. Yeah. He gets up on the apron with a taser and hits like this with a taser. This is during the Park and Andrade match. Referee goes to him. While the referee goes to him, Chavo slides in, hits Park with a iPad, knocks Park out. Andrade gets the pin. 1, 2, 3. At the end of that, they're all slide out and they're all celebrating, and then the guy tells Andrade what happened. Andrade turns, looks at Chavo. They have a little sort of blah, blah argument. Andrade hugs him, then hits him, like forearms him. He forearms him down to the Lucha Brothers, who then super kick him, who then throw him into the ring, and then Park puts on his finish. Fantastic. That submission. Isn't that very beating up a legend? Isn't that very for no reason? For no reason.
Chavo is, and again, I'm, a bit more keyed into the lucha side of things as well. And he really is considered, one of the greats in Mexico, who has, part of a legendary family who has taken wrestling to mainstream America. And, there's a lot of people who do consider him to be a really, truly all-time great. And it does seem like beating him up for no reason so he can go make a TV show when he could have just walked away for some reason.
Yeah, and especially when Andrade cuts a promo afterwards saying, I can beat Park without help, blah, blah, blah. You're a fucking heel. Just be a heel. I'm sorry, I swore. I tried not to, but you're a heel. Just be a heel. Take the win. Don't try and make yourself a babyface when you're obviously not. That's one of the things that I don't like about AEW is that no one seems to want to be one thing or the other. They don't want to be. If you want Andrade to turn on Chavo as a heel, people like Chavo. It would be really easy to remind everyone that they like Chavo and then have Andrade see that people like Chavo, not like that people like Chavo more than they like him, and then hit him. That's not a difficult version of the story to tell. No. And then because then afterwards you've got the Lucha Brothers and Park will beat him up as well. That's a good thing. If you're a babyface and you're doing that to the guy, fair enough if the guy's been doing stuff to you for the last X amount of months and this is your comeuppance. This is the first real time that they've had a interaction in the ring. So for that, I just didn't understand it. It was the same thing they did with Brian Pillman Jr. last week as well. They built him up he basically got embarrassed in that promo with MJF in the ring when MJF called his mother Methany, and he came down and they ended up beating him up and then beating up his tag team partner, and then they made him look pretty weak at the start there. Let's face it. And then fed into Max Caster doing the same thing in promo form. Pillman got the win over Max Caster on Rampage, but then they beat him up again until Jon Moxley came in and made the save. So as far as I could see right there, he got beat down twice. John Moxley had to make the save for him. I know John Moxley was a hometown boy as well. I don't see how that helps Pillman at all in that.
Speaking of not knowing how guys are being used in AEW and not knowing if they're being helped, Melissa Santos, who's the wife of Brian Cage and ring announcer, has made some tweets about feeling like Cage is being misused in AEW. What's gone down with this one, Todd?
Well, she retweeted somebody who'd written a whole thing about Brian Cage not being used properly and all of that sort of thing. And I can't remember what the thing, I think it might have been a prayer emoji or something like that. And the fans jumped on her about it. So one of those things, do not speak ill of the Khan.
I can give a quote here. You see Brian Cage as a superstar. Those people who know him from Indies, Impact, Lucha Underground, where I met him, know that he's a superstar. All you have to do is Google him and watch all his matches at PWG. He's a superstar and he's being misused right now. And we have had the AEW fans jumping down people's throats. Now, I want to quickly say, if you are someone who listens to this podcast, this is, for me, I don't care what, you can have whatever feelings on wrestling you should have. If you're calling people horrible names on Twitter because of their views on wrestling or on a wrestling company, I think that's absolutely despicable. This is not the first person this fortnight who this has happened to. Melissa Santos will not be the last person this happens to, especially will not be the last woman that this happens to. This is happening way too regularly, and people think that, you know, AEW has to be defended at all costs. It doesn't. It's a company run by a millionaire whose father is a billionaire. You don't need to defend AEW. And it's fine if you want to defend what they're doing on TV, but you don't have to insult people to do that. That's line in the sand for me.
That's the thing too. Like they have to they defended AEW and all of that sort of stuff. I'm like, and like another one too is because Crown Jewel's coming up. Oh, WWE taking the blood money again. And I don't know if you know what like Tony Khan's dad does. He kind of works with them as well. So I mean, like the money's all coming from there. It's just going to Tony and to Vince in different ways.
Yep.
So it's sort of like,
that's right.
It's like defending one billionaire against another. It's stupid.
In the lighter side of this argument, do you think Cage is being misused? Do you think he's a superstar?
Definitely think he's got the potential to be. I think a lot of those guys that when they first came into AEW had an idea of what was going to happen to them because they were told that this is where we're pushing the young guys and this is what's going to happen. And all you guys that never got a shot before are going to get a shot. And they were all excited about that. And then slowly these other people have come in from like NXT, WWE, and they've seen themselves move like slowly down that card because it's just a weight of numbers. It's hard to get everybody onto a TV show, and it's like 2 TV shows. And I don't care what you're saying. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Putting them on YouTube is not, that to me is like the same as being on Main Event every week or 205 Live. No, not so much 205 Live because that's more NXT, but that's the same as being on Main Event or Velocity or Superstars.
Heat.
That's not TV. If you're putting up like 3 hours of television of just like jobber match, that's not being on TV. That's just getting a rep in.
Yeah. And Brian Cage is the kind of guy, I have seen Brian Cage do a Steiner screwdriver and follow it up with a moonsault. The guy's unbelievable. Like he's a freak of nature. And I think, yeah, he definitely could be a superstar, but we seem to say it every fortnight. AEW is getting all of, it's like Tony Khan is collecting his action figures. He wants to have all of his action figures to play with. And he's very excited when he gets a new action figure and he gets to play with that one for a little while. And the ones that he's had for a long time are sitting at the back of the shelf.
That's such a good analogy. Because I was thinking about it the other day when he was in that press conference with Punk. He was so very happy. I'm like, I get that same look on my face when I find a chase.
Yep, that's exactly it. I'm just imagining the movie Toy Story, where Woody thinks that he's the favorite and then he gets replaced by the new guy. And there's so many AEW faces you could Photoshop onto Buzz and Woody because it's that same story over and over and over again. I'm the favorite. I'm in the main event. The new toy shows up and I'm back in the toy box.
Yeah, there was one thing that, and I don't know if I'd say this for chicken shit or not because it'll just be me piling on. But I watched, I think it was the post press conference for All In or All Out, and Tony Khan was talking about, and it's probably not a great name to bring up right at this moment, was talking about how Ric Flair was praising him on how he runs the show. And the way he said it, I was like, Jesus Christ, if Triple H was on a promo, on a post conference and said this, they would be lynching him from the highest tree. And because it was basically like, Ric Flair came over and said to me, "You're doing so well. Your command of this is so good. I can't believe you're doing such a good job here. You're just a natural at it. I just can't believe it." As I'm listening to this, I'm like, how are these people not jumping on him for this? But he's the favorite. They've done a really good thing. He did a really good thing at the start when he formed AEW is he went and everybody that Vince or WWE have sort of like made hard for them to find their news stories or do all their stuff, he brought them in and said, "Here, I'll tell you everything I need to know," and all of that sort of stuff, blah, blah, blah. Made it easy for them. So, of course, if anything, it's sort of like he's bought the wrestling journalist loyalty as such. And that's what it seems from an outside perspective. That's what it seems like to me, because I've noticed that if anyone does anything or writes anything about AEW ratings wise on Twitter, I don't know how, but Dave Meltzer seems to find it and rebuts it with a retweet out of nowhere. To the point where, like, I looked at one the other day and the girl wrote something about the ratings and he responded to it. And I just thought, well, that's really weird because she didn't tag him in this at all. She didn't hashtag AEW. She didn't do any of this. And then I went to her followers. It's like she had 276 followers. And I'm like, how's Meltzer seeing that? I wouldn't have seen it unless he retweeted it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
anyway,
sorry.
We do want to keep it moving. We don't want this to be another 4 or 5 hour podcast like we definitely could make. So let's come off of AEW for a minute and talk about WWE. So first off, the biggest news coming out of
hang on.
WWE.
Before we do that, we should talk about like New York this week for AEW, because it's a pay-per-view.
Yeah, we should mention the big episode of Dynamite.
And Rampage. Rampage is 2 hours this week.
2 hour Rampage. We've got, and I mean, just that main event of, seriously, that main event of Danielson versus Omega is, you could build the biggest wrestling show in the world around that, and they're doing it on an episode of Dynamite.
Yeah, it's because, and we've said it before, AEW is a TV company. They're not a pay-per-view company. It's just what it is. And it's sort of, I don't know. I saw a meme and I think I put it up on my personal Facebook page. They were talking about, somebody wrote about, they put an image of this week's Raw, because this week's Raw main event will be the New Day versus the Bloodline. And then they put the photo of Omega and Danielson. And on one side it had WWE hot-shotting things just to blah, blah, blah. Then AEW underneath the picture of Omega thing. Oh, AEW really listen to us and give us the matches we want on TV. I'm like,
yeah, I did see you share that one. Yep.
Only because it made me laugh. I'm like, that's so true.
Let's quickly run through the AEW Grand Slam card. So we've got 2 nights. The card for Dynamite is Brian Pillman Jr. versus MJF, Cody Rhodes versus Malachi Black, a tag team match between FTR and Sting and Darby Allin, a singles match for the AEW Women's World Championship between Britt Baker and Ruby Soho. We've got a singles match between Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson. And then on Rampage on the Friday, we've got Super Click, so Adam Cole and the Young Bucks, versus Jurassic Express and Chris cage. Then we've got Jericho and Hager representing the Inner Circle versus Men of the Year, so Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. We've got CM Punk versus Powerhouse Hobbs. We've got Suzuki Goon, which is Minoru Suzuki and Lance Archer versus Kingston and Moxley. We've got Lucha Brothers and Santana and Ortiz versus the Hardy Family Office, represented by Private Party and the Butcher and the Blade. And we've got Anna Jay versus Penelope Ford. That's insane.
Yeah,
that's
if you think
that's 2 pay-per-views.
And if you think about it, that's getting recorded on one night. So they're going to watch that 2-hour Dynamite and then that Rampage straight after it.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolutely huge show. The fact that it is going on TV is irrefutable proof that it seems for this company that all of those matches could be saved for a pay-per-view, but they are going on TV because this company needs to care about their ratings.
And God, you'd want to hope that it rates its ass off. You really would, for what they've put into this. And like everyone's saying, this is going to be the biggest, highest rated Dynamite ever. It's going to be unbelievable, blah, blah, blah. And they all point to the demo numbers, because the demo numbers is what makes AEW comparable to Raw. Because I don't understand why they're comparing these two shows ratings wise when they're on completely different nights, and especially this week with what WWE were up against. Because I can't remember what podcast it was. I think it might have been Post Wrestling with John Pollock and Wei Ting. They were talking about it, and Monday Night Football was up against Monday Night Raw this week. So Monday Night Raw did 1.6 mil or something like that, to be honest. 29 million people watched Monday Night Football over ABC, NBC, ESPN. So that's what they were up against.
Such huge numbers to compete with.
Yeah, and Dynamite beat them in the demo by 0.01. So if we're going demo, they still only beat them by 0.01%, or 0.01 of a point, with WWE up against NFL. And I don't know what Dynamite were up against, like MTV The Challenge or something. I'm not sure. But it's I don't see how that's a comparable number when you're looking at. But fair enough if there was a Wednesday Night Football and that's what they were up against. So that to me is a comparable statistic.
Yeah, it's a totally different situation.
Yes, it is. And it's especially and they only did, again, like I said last fortnight, they only did 1.1 this week on that Dynamite show. So it's sort of this week Dynamites will be up, and I don't know what numbers they'll pull. You'd like to hope that they pull comparable to Raw overall numbers, 1.6, 1.
You'd have to hope.
You would hope. Otherwise, I don't know what. I mean, if they get anything over 1.3, they'll be singing from the rooftops. If they get anything under 1.3 internally, I think they'll be what the hell have we got to do to crack that number?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so moving on. Speaking of WWE and their ratings, especially competing with Monday Night Football, WWE used an interesting tactic where the Money in the Bank holder, Big E, tweeted that he planned to cash in Money in the Bank on Monday night, and he did successfully. So our new WWE champion is Big E. What do you think, Todd?
I love the fact that he's the champ. I've never seen a champion get crowned that got universal praise from workers in every different fed. AEW, some AEW workers praise him. He's just one of the most loved people in wrestling at the moment.
I have never heard anyone say a bad word about Big E.
No,
never.
No, and I love, and they say about I understand that it probably was them worried about the demo and all of that sort of thing with AEW, and that's why he announced it. Baby faces generally will announce when they're going to cash in. Rob Van Dam, remember when Rob Van Dam cashed in, he said, I want to do it at Extreme Rules, or one night only.
Cena did it in advance.
So he did it in advance. He just didn't do it the traditional way. He just put it out on a tweet, which made everyone go, oh, well, he's hot-shotting. So maybe he is, but I mean, we're going to get it, aren't we? So what's the problem? Like you want,
and I love Big E. I love watching him wrestle. I think he's a ton of fun. I think he's a great pick for the champion because he's going to appeal to kids because he's got the New Day gimmick that's very marketable to kids. He's going to appeal to guys like us because he is a good worker who does great promo work, who's really entertaining, who we know everyone in the industry loves. So that's going to make us feel positive. He's great on Twitter. He's got a good podcast. I can't think of, anyone who's going to be unhappy with him as champion.
And he could be one step closer to his dream matchup with Goldberg. So
that's right. That's a big meaty men slapping meat. That's what
that is his dream match. And God, there's something I was thinking the other day is like, I would love to see, and this is what they said. I would love to see something like, and I don't think it's going to happen now because I heard MVP got injured, but like MVP and Lashley against Big E and Goldberg at like Crown Jewel, which leads to Goldberg and Big E down the line somewhere. That is something I would love, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Fantastic.
So,
well, speaking of Big E having dream tag matches as the champ, we've got on Raw, we're going to have a massive 6-man tag match where the New Day are going to take on the Bloodline. There's been an interesting little feud developing between Big E as WWE champion and Roman as Universal champion. This is a really interesting match. I'm really happy to see the Bloodline as a 6-man as a 3-person tag outfit. I think it's a great idea. I think it's really obvious, and I want to see more of it. I think it's really cool to have the New Day working as, Big E being their solo, being the champion, but still having his friends in the New Day, which is the same as it was when Kofi was champion.
Yep.
I think it's really cool to have these factions that exist and have these strong links, but they're still individual performers. They're still Big E as a solo main eventer, but these are his friends who he teams with. I love that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's almost like taking two of the New Day's biggest rivals when they were like a trio tag, being like the Usos and then the Shield, smashing those two together against the New Day. And it's something that people have wanted Bloodline together as a group for ages, ever since like the Brotherhood or something, when it was Dustin and Cody. They wanted, and
they were taking on the Shield.
Yeah, they wanted that for like the Usos, and now that they're getting it, it's great. It's going to be a great match. It's a pity it's up. Well,
so speaking of Roman Reigns as the Universal Champ, we have 2 upcoming matches for Roman. One of them has been locked in at Crown Jewel. Reigns will be taking on Brock Lesnar. But before that, Reigns will be challenged by Finn Balor again for the Universal title. But this time it's not Finn who will be challenging for the belt. It is the Demon. We haven't seen the Demon for a long time. He's come back this last episode of SmackDown. And it's been, we've had a tease before that where Roman was walking out and the lights went out and went red and we heard a heartbeat. So we've been building for a couple of weeks for the return of the Demon. But does putting this match on, we know that a Lesnar match is coming up, does that mean that the Demon's losing? So we get Lesnar challenging for the belt at Crown Jewel?
Well, I don't know, because the way they said it was like that match is set, like Reigns and Lesnar are set. It just depends on who wins. Like if Reigns wins, then it won't be for the title. That's the way that they've advertised it. So they could do it where bloody Lesnar interferes at Extreme, gives the Demon the title. That was exactly what I was going to say. But I don't know. I don't know if they do that.
I think that the Demon has to be strong. Otherwise, there's no point to have it as Balor's, second phase when you beat the boss once and then he transforms into the bigger, more powerful version. If the Demon is going to show up for the first time in years, because it has been years, because the last time we saw it was before he went back down to NXT. If we're bringing the Demon back on him and then he just loses, what's the point? We could have put someone else in that slot, given someone else their shot, because again, we've already had Balor as Finn fail to claim the title. Why bring back the Demon unless he is going to win?
Well, I don't know who else would have you put in that spot though, off the top of your head.
I mean, there's a roster full of people. I mean, obviously Drew is over on the other show and he's doing that thing still, but I honestly think a really fun story to do in that lead up would have been to have someone who's low on the card. So let's take, I can't even think of who's still employed because they've cut so many people, but let's take an example of someone who's not there, a Tyler Breeze type of character who you go, this person somehow wins a tournament through dumb luck and they are going to get the shot of their lives at Extreme Rules. Instead of, having someone who's already lost.
The problem is that they've done that before and then just like squash the guy at the big match payoff. So they've sort of burnt that bridge. Like I think they didn't they do it with Ricochet? The Ricochet and Goldberg, or I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Did they do it with Ricochet? I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, I think Ricochet, because Ricochet got a big break and then they just sort of killed him in the big match. It might have been against Gold. Yeah, I think it was against Goldberg. But I can't remember where it was.
I mean, don't get me started. I'm wearing the Ricochet shirt right now, so let's not get me started on how Ricochet's been misused. But like, I'm looking at the SmackDown roster right now. Like, let's make it Cesaro had that big shot against Rollins. We could easily put Cesaro will heat back up in an instant. Apollo Crews, is not that far removed from an IC title run. He's a guy who could have a great match against Roman Reigns. It would be heel versus heel.
But he's still in the Intercontinental thing. So it was Ricochet and Brock Lesnar at Super Showdown.
There you go. I mean, is Nakamura still kicking around?
Yeah, he's the IC champ.
See, I don't even know. I don't know who's on which show. Nakamura's IC champ. Let's see. This is what's happened with
Nakamura's
SmackDown.
an IC
I literally don't know who is there doing what. He's got Rick Boogs playing guitar for him. Like I know that, but I can't remember that he's got the belt because there's no consistency with these shows.
Yeah. Well, like SmackDown is the better show of Raw, and like SmackDown's the one that I will watch. Raw, I'll look at the highlights, and like I said before, if Rhea's got a match, I'll watch that because that's my girl. And
3 hours is too long.
Yeah, aside from that, I just see what's interesting. Okay, I'll check that out. Okay, I'll check that out. I like Kevin Owens. I like, you know what I mean? So I'll check certain things out.
But it's no reason for these rosters to have to be separate, right? Let's bring over, I don't know, like what Keith Lee isn't even on the shows at the moment. He's doing pre-show dark matches. Bring Keith Lee over. Well, have him hotshot it into a program.
There's a draft coming up too soon, so who knows what happens with that?
And yeah, absolutely. And on WWE, we've seen NXT 2.0 now. We've seen the bright colors. We've seen the new design. We have a new champion because Samoa Joe, after attaining the title, has had to relinquish it due to injury. So our new champion, after a big four-way match on NXT 2.0, is Baldy. Why can't I remember his name all of a sudden?
Tommaso Ciampa. You and me last week.
Ciampa. Yeah, that's
me last week.
I love Ciampa with the belt. I think he's fantastic. I love seeing the return of him and Goldie. It's fantastic. I really
thought for a minute that LA Knight was going to get the belt. I just had this weird feeling.
I was going to say, I'm shocked it didn't go to LA Knight. I think the guy is absolutely fantastic. His promo work is unbelievable. That promo with him driving around in the car, just talking, fantastic work. And I think that that dude's money. He could be on the main roster tomorrow and he'd be money.
But yeah, so what did you, because you always ask me, what did you think of the new version of NXT 2.0?
I liked NXT 2.0. I think that the design is really cool. It doesn't look like other shows that we've got. And I think for me, that's a big part of it. I feel like we still had match quality. And honestly, when it comes to watching a show, that's what I care about. If the match quality is there, I'm not as bothered. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of the best matches on that show, and I know it's not weird to say, but it is weird to say, was the girls' tag. That was one of the best matches on that show. And normally when you're talking the NXT girls, they're not NXT girls, but WWE girls, they're not given that time to have a decent run with a match.
Yeah, so that was the 6-woman match between, it was Casey Catanzaro, Saray, and Caden Carter up against Mandy Rose, and then who was Mandy Rose with? Was it Gigi Dolan?
Names. Yeah, Gigi Dolan and somebody else.
And JC Jane?
There we go. Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Very well. Well done, mate.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
But like I said, like I put it up on my Twitter, and I know I'm saying this 1,000 times during this show, but I do not understand why WWE don't cash in on the currency that is second generation workers. Why they don't promote these guys as being like, this is the son of somebody who you used to know and love, because that already goes. You already have a connection with that person. That helps them. That half their job's done. If you'd have called Bron Breakker, Rex Steiner, which is what he wanted to be called and what he was called before, that would have because the dude looks like Rick. He looks like a Steiner. He looks like a more jacked Rick Steiner because he is Rick Steiner's son. He looks like a jacked, and he brought back the Steiner line, which popped me huge because I was only talking about that the other week. In
fairness, if I was the WWE, I would maybe want to minimize my associations with Scott Steiner. And I think that might be where it's coming from. But Rick is fine. And I think that would be the challenge is I think the reason that they've changed the name, and again, this is me speculating, I don't know for sure. I think they don't want to remind people that Scott Steiner exists and is a crazy person. And I think the way that they're doing that is by not using the Steiner name.
Yeah, but they did it with him. I can't remember what his name is, but the kid that was in the main event, that got put into the main, that.
I'm trying to think.
Quick, you do it. But there was another.
Google it quickly.
You Google it quickly while I talk
Von Wagner.
Von Wagner. Von Wagner is Wayne Bloom's son, who was Bo Beverly from the Beverly Brothers.
Yep.
So they could have easily done that. One of the other guys in the tag match was Bull Buchanan's son. So they could have called him whatever Buchanan. They mentioned that he was his son. There was a slight mention. They didn't say Rick Steiner's name, but they said Dogface Gremlin during the Rex Steiner match. I'm just going to keep calling him Rex Steiner because I don't care. I think that's better than.
He should be called Rex Steiner. It seems really obvious.
And they're giving him a massive push because, he got the win over LA Knight in the Open, and then at the end of the show, did a face-to-face with Tommaso Ciampa. So obviously they're going to go with him because he's got a great look.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a great worker. He's got all the tools. A decent promo because he's got that hyped up style. He was like if Mojo Rawling could actually wrestle. That's
a fantastic comparison. I also I love seeing Drake Maverick get beat up. Puts a smile on my face every time. So with that, look, we've covered the big two companies. We've talked about AEW, WWE. We've got heaps more to talk about. So I think let's take a break now and we'll come back with some more stuff.
October 16th. The road to Reawakening 20 begins. As EPW presents Mighty Encounters. Gate 1 Theatre, Claremont Showgrounds. The last stop before Reawakening 20. The Godfather versus the Gunslinger. Plus, all your favorite EPW superstars. EPW Mighty Encounters, October 16th, Gate 1 Theatre, Claremont Showgrounds. Don't you miss it.
So, Todd, let's talk about some of the other companies that have had shows and wrestling news over the past couple of weeks. So, first off, a huge show from Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor. I want to say it was like 18. Death Before Dishonor 18 happened. So, this is Ring of Honor's big show. We've had a number of huge matches on it and a couple of new champions. So, first off, we've got a new pure champion in Josh Woods, and we've got an inaugural women's champion in Roxy. Do you want to talk about either of these new champs?
Yeah, Josh Woods. I've loved Josh Woods as a worker for a long time. He did a lot of stuff with now I've caught you on a disease.
Yeah, now you've got it. So Josh Woods beat Gresham for the pure title.
He was in a tag team before with Silas Young. There we go. He's done a lot of work over the last couple of years with Silas Young, who, like, incidentally, is one of the guys that really helped bring along Hangman Page.
Yes.
And Hangman Page first started in ROH. Those two sort of started together, and he really helped bring along Page. He's done the same thing with Josh Woods. Josh Woods, a really good worker, and Jonathan Gresham really helped reestablish that pure title when they brought it back. Like, Josh Gresham is a wrestler's wrestler. I love Jonathan Gresham. I love his work. I think he's pretty much going to be pointed towards Bandito now for that main title, and he does deserve it. I know he doesn't. I know he's not, because he's a short guy and he doesn't really have the size that you would associate with being the heavyweight guy. But his technical work is bar none. There's not another one better than him at the moment going around that American scene. So yeah, it was a really good match. Like I said, Josh Woods, can't wait to see what he does as the pure champion, because that pure title, that pure division, that's wrestling that I really do love, because it's pure. It's pure wrestling.
It's old school good wrestling.
Yes.
Speaking of the Ring of Honor World Championship, retained by Bandito, as you mentioned, and that was a match where I was worried about the outcome, because we had Flamita and Bandito. I love Lucha guys, would love to see either of them walk away with the title. Brody King, who I think is an absolutely fantastic wrestler, would have loved to see him come away with the title. And also EC3 was there, and that made me worried about what they were going to do. But Bandito's retained in that match, and I think really has been proving himself as a guy who can be a champion. And I think if Gresham is the next challenger, I think that'll be amazing. But for me, the highlight of Ring of Honor recently has been that, like we said, Roxy is the new world champion for the women's world champion. And that has been the result of a big tournament that's been going on since, like, I want to say like June or July. So for several months, they've built a huge tournament. It was Miranda Elise was the final matchup, but there were a few people in that tournament who I think are absolutely ones to watch. People like, obvious ones like Angelina Love had, the first round bye because she's such a big name. But there are people like, I think Nicole Savoy was in it, and I think she's amazing. Marty Bell was in it. She's incredible. Allison Kay. Like, these are people who are fantastic wrestlers who I want to see more of.
Marty Bell and Allison Kay are a really good tag team as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's something I didn't mention last week. I know that last episode we talked about NWA Empower, but I went back and rewatched the women's battle royale from that. And wow, there are so many great women that are wrestling at the moment. Go and check out that battle royale if you want to see some awesome women's wrestling. I know that we're going to get to chicken salad later, but fantastic. Really, really good. So a couple of other things on that show that we'll just go through quickly. There was in order to get a world championship match, there was a big rumble. Alex Zane won that. I think
that was his debut with the company as well.
It was after his recent release from WWE. So that was really good. We've got Dalton Castle is, trying to improve the showmanship by recruiting young wrestlers. I think that's a great storyline. There's some really good stuff going on in Ring of Honor. I know that that's obvious because there's normally good stuff going on in Ring of Honor, but I also know that, with WWE and AEW being so big, sometimes it's hard to remember that there are these other companies who are doing really, really good stuff. And Death Before Dishonor is a great example of that. Is there anything else you want to point out from that show?
Yeah, Taylor Rust and Jake Atlas had a match on that show, as well as Tyler Rust from NXT and Jake Atlas, of course, from NXT. That was a really good match. It ended a bit prematurely, if I remember. And this week it just came out that Jake Atlas is
retiring.
So it's to do with mental health or something. He's just burnt out from the business and that sort of thing. And that can happen. So, I mean, all the best to him. And I hope he finds himself something that he loves to do, because that's what we're all looking for in this life.
And that's what he said. He was going to find something that he had that passion for again. And, hope that he does. It's obviously a shame to lose such a young, talented person. But, there's going to be burnout. I want to say that I hope there hasn't been a whole lot of extra stress that's caused that by him being an openly gay wrestler, because there is not a lot of them. So the fact that he's retiring due to mental health, and knowing that fact is there, makes me concerned. The industry still has its problems with supporting people in, those positions, supporing people.
I don't know
that's well
now,
represented, but
I don't know now so much, because you look at the indie scene now, and there's like almost some promotions dedicated to that, with like Effie.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that there's
thing.
Promotions dedicated to it, but people like Effie are putting on those shows.
Yes.
Effie's Big Gay Brunch was a great show that was all, LGBTQ plus wrestling, and, that kind of stuff really is going to help that going forward. But if you looked at Jake Atlas, he's someone who in WWE, he was their gay wrestler. You know what I mean? That was something that they often referred to. It was the same when they had one of the primetime players. What's his name?
Darren Young.
Darren Young was out. And that was like, tick, we've got the representation. So it makes me worry that in the big companies, that's not happening while it is on the indies. But either way, all the best to Jake Atlas. Hope he finds...
Here's the thing, though, and there's a question I'll pose to you, right? Do you think someone should keep their job in a promotion if you don't think that they're going to make you money as a wrestler just because they are like gay or trans or whatever, because it ticks a box? This is what I'm not.
No,
anyway,
I agree. I agree, but I also think that there is an onus on the company to make sure that those people are not being mistreated in a way that is going to cause them to have mental health issues and stuff, that's going to cause them to be less effective at making money. I also think that if you're looking at those kind of people, there is a huge, huge market out there for people who are queer, LGBTQ plus people who want to see representation in wrestling, who are looking at events like Effie's Big Gay Brunch and loving what they're seeing, and not seeing that in mainstream companies. So to me, if you're looking at these people and you're thinking, I'm not going to make money off this individual, that's fine. But that has to come with the fact that there is a whole bunch of individuals who can make money who WWE is not hiring. And we can't say, they should be firing people if they're not going to make them money. But you can't deny that it seems like there's a huge market out there that's not being tapped. And that's not exclusive to queer people, because there's people like Danhausen who are also making buckets of money on the indies who WWE aren't going to be interested in. But it's interesting to note that difference there.
And I'm glad for someone like him. I hope he doesn't get signed by them and it sounds terrible, them or AEW. I just hope he stays in Ring of Honor and does his stuff, because I've
just been obsessed with Danhausen at the moment. I've been watching Danhausen videos. I cannot get enough of the guy. And I hope he never goes anywhere where they are going to tell him what to do, because he is so great.
I think I mentioned it to you. My barometer for what like a casual as hell wrestling fan would like is my wife, because she take or leave wrestling. She's like, the only reason she's ever watched the match is because she's married to me. And I was watching some clip with Danhausen in it, and it made her sit down and watch and laugh. And that to me, that's a
I
casual
feel like
fan.
I could show Danhausen to anyone.
She's like, why is he talking like that? And then she starts laughing. I'm just like, it's great, isn't it? She's like, he's really. She's like, can he actually wrestle? I'm like, yeah, he can.
Yeah. Alrighty, Toddhausen, we'd better move on. Let's talk about Dark Side of the Ring quickly. So there was an episode of Dark Side of the Ring about the plane ride from hell. So obviously this is a story that's, been around for a long time. But with Dark Side of the Ring coming out, there's a lot more specific details and a lot of interviews about it. A really specific note about Ric Flair sexually assaulting a stewardess as part of that flight. And that has led to him getting dropped from some advertising campaigns. Along with that, as part of that episode, Tommy Dreamer said, he was just doing his style and profiling thing. And the result of that is that Tommy Dreamer has been suspended from Impact Wrestling. And again, I'm just going to jump in here and say what I think on that one. I think that Tommy Dreamer was very, very dumb to say that, right? I think that you don't come out and support someone who is being accused of sexual assault. I think that you don't do that morally, but you also, knowing that you're a public figure, you definitely don't do that. And I think that, I believe that he believed what he was saying, but I also think that that was probably more common than we have heard. And I think if that was part of Flair's styling and profiling, then that part of it needs to be left in the past.
Yeah, I'd like to know if Tommy actually knew the whole story about that when he was saying that sort of stuff, because you don't know with the way they've edited it, if they've edited it like they've talked to her and then before they've talked to her, they talked to Tommy. And so Tommy's just done the whole, he was just doing his blah, 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 blah. And then this woman comes out and says, no, he backed me into a thing. He made me touch his, like that sort of thing. And if he doesn't know that that's what's been said, and he's just going, he was just
it's
doing
definitely
that sort of thing.
It's definitely possible that what Tommy knew of this story was Flair was in his robe and nothing else doing helicopter dick down the aisle. And if that's all you know, sure, he was just styling and profiling.
Yeah. Again, not defending it at all. Incredibly dumb for what Tommy said and for what Ric Flair had done. It's completely like, for me, you know how much I love Ric Flair as a wrestler, and it's very disappointing to hear that this actually happened.
And honestly, when you're talking about things like the plane ride from hell, it's not the only despicable thing that's happening on that flight. It's not the only despicable thing that's happening in wrestling at the time. It's a really good thing that wrestling has become a better place in terms of safety and what the wrestlers are doing in their off time. Thank God for video games, because wrestlers playing video games has been a much better outlet than some of the things that went on in the past.
Look, I'm gonna go at you because I was gonna go at other people who are doing that. These smart ass F-wits that came out straight away with this smart ass little, oh yes, I can understand what the Undertaker was saying, blah, 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 blah. Like speaking out didn't happen last year. You know what I mean? It's been going on for a long time. When people were playing video games, they were still doing that shit.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And that's, you know what
I mean? So it's not like all he was saying at the time, Undertaker was saying, was that it was a lot different, a lot more quote unquote manly locker room, which is something that he preferred because he preferred the whole football mentality, like men are men. And it's just an old mentality. I'm not defending it. I'm not saying it's just an old mentality.
You're absolutely right. And I think that, that line about, thank God there's just guys hanging around playing video games. The fact that there are still people doing horrible things in the industry, that's not excused at all. No. But I think that the industry today in general is much more sanitized because it has to be, because the internet exists. And thankfully, because of speaking out, I feel like the industry is going to be less tolerant of those people because they know the power that the internet can have on, your career if you do something horrible.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I just thought that it was a cheap shot to take for something that was already pretty cheap.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, if you can see something in the mud, don't dive in it and roll around is all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, you're
And,
absolutely right.
Yeah, I personally, I have not watched that Dark Side episode for the mere fact that my mental health hasn't been the best as of late, and the last thing I want to do is watch something that would make me feel worse. And that is the reason why I haven't watched it. I saw all the clips that have been put up on social media and all of that stuff because I sort of had to get around it for this show, especially, and because every Tom, Dick, and Harry that knows me knows how much I like Ric Flair. So they were like, "Did you see this?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't." Great, that's awesome.
I'm in exactly the same boat. My mental health hasn't been in an awesome place lately. So I saw that there were new episodes of Dark Side of the Ring, and I went, probably not the best time.
Yeah. Give me the funnier ones. Give me the Herb Abrams ones. Give me the, do you know what I mean? I don't want to see this shit. And it's not the fact that it's, do you know the one thing though that makes me think more too? And I was thinking about this today, right? If it was so easy for these Dark Side guys to go in there and get this story, why hasn't someone like a Dave Meltzer, a Bixen Span, I hate that guy, like one of these, Wade Keller, how have they not uncovered this before? And if they had uncovered it and not reported it, why didn't they do it? That's more the question. Why has it taken until 2021 for them to bring this story out? Because it was obviously fairly easy to get people to talk.
And on top of that as well, Todd, if these Dark Side of the Ring people can go in and get a 30, 40-year-old story that easily, you know, because some of these Dark Side of the Ring episodes aren't talking about recent things. If these guys can pick them and go and uncover these stories that easily, what are the stories that haven't been uncovered yet? And how many people have suffered in this industry that we don't know about? And that's, you know, pretty concerning to me.
Do you know what though? Is the worst part about it is not just wrestling. Every industry would have stories like this. It's just that we all love wrestling and we consume anything that comes out about wrestling. So of course we're going to latch onto a new story that comes out and all of that sort of stuff. I'm willing to bet the same thing happens in theater. I'm willing to bet the same thing happens in the art scene. I like, well, you know, for a fact it happens, like that sort of stuff happens in the art scene with models and all of that sort of stuff, and the artists taking advantage of them and agents in Hollywood and like Harvey Weinstein and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, it happens everywhere. It's just that we're more concerned about it because it's in wrestling as well, because wrestling's a microcosm for the rest of the society. It needs to be stamped out completely from society, not just from wrestling.
And I think that needs to be a call for all of us to know that if this is happening in the things we love, we need to stand up and make voices heard about it. And that means supporting the people who are coming out and, you know, saying what's gone wrong and what needs to be fixed, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's not hard. It's not hard to be respectful and not hard to be not a fuckwit. Like, don't be a shit.
Absolutely. That's it. So let's move on to something a bit lighter. Let's play our favorite game. That's debatable. Hit the jingle.
That's debatable.
Time to play.
That's debatable.
Welcome to That's Debatable, the segment of the show where Todd and I take a topic, we flip a coin and decide who will take the positive, who will take the negative, and we will argue, and we get 1 minute each with you guys deciding on social media who won the debate. Now, before we get into anything, it's time for me to brag, because our first episode of That's Debatable was 67% of the votes going to me. Thank you very much. Obviously was always going to happen. There was never any question, but the numbers don't lie.
I'm not going to concede. I think there was some voter fraud. We're going to go through some recounts. Big lie
even better
is
than recounting
that debate.
Even better than recounting, Todd. Why don't we go round two? Now, one of our absolute favorite fans, Barbara Bowman, has submitted a question that says, should bookers and owners hold titles in their promotions? Now, this is a great question. I think we need to randomly decide who is going to take the positive and who is going to take the negative.
Yeah.
So,
before you do that, mate. No, I don't. I just realized I don't have a coin. Before you do that, Barb, by the way, is Barb's Photos. So follow her on Instagram. Check out her stuff. She does great work for
one of the MVPs of Queensland wrestling.
Yes, it's great work and a great supporter of the show. So I want to thank Barb for that, by the way, too. Her husband, though, what a shit guy. I'll cop it for that. So
couldn't help.
I have to because I love her. Ed can go F himself. All
right, I got a solution here, Todd. I got a die here, 6-sided die. If it's odds, you're saying no. If it's evens, you're saying yes. Sound good?
Okay. Yeah, okay.
All right, the die roll is a 2. You have to say, yes, bookers and owners should hold titles in their promotions. I'll be on the counter. I'll say no, they shouldn't. You happy for me to time you here, Toddy?
Yeah, mate, go for it. You can do that. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You're on the positive, so let's have you go first. Your time starts now.
I think that it is okay for a booker or a owner to hold a title for their promotion, mainly if, of course, it is more than one person doing the booking and they not really have a say in it, if you know what I mean. You get the majority votes. Sometimes it's better in some respects for an owner to do it because the owner's never going to leave. He's never going to, well, hopefully not going to do anything to dishonor the belt or dishonor the title. When it's time to drop the title, they're going to do it properly. Now I've drawn a blank.
The
good thing. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You just so gone. I was on a roll and I just stopped dead. Yeah, that's it. No, bugger it. That's it. No, but it has to be. It has to be if there's a real fine line because the owner or the booker that holds the title has to be respected by the locker room. And if they're not respected by the locker room, there's no point.
Perfect. All right. You happy for me to take the no on this, Todd?
Yeah, because I'm going to edit the shit out of that so it doesn't seem like there was a big gap.
Yeah, sounds perfect. All right. And I'm going to start my time now. So this is a really simple no for me. There is so many promotions where the owner or the booker sees themselves as a great worker and it's simply not the truth. And it's impossible for them to know whether they are the best worker in their company or not, for the simple reason of they can't be there watching their matches. They can't be sitting in the crowd, seeing how everyone around them reacts to know if they really are the person who deserves that belt. And even if they are part of a team, even if there's other people around them, those people are not going to have an easy time saying to that person, you should not have the title. You are not the person who needs it right now. If you look at WWE, are you seriously going to tell me that Vince deserved to hold the ECW title? I think it's ridiculous. That's a perfect example in an international company of why the owner is not the person who should hold the belt. The person who holds the belt should be the wrestler who can get the best response from the crowd for being the champion. And that's my minute. Okay. So with that,
I disagree with the Vince thing, but that's cool.
You've heard Todd's horrible disjointed argument about why owners and bookers should hold titles. You've heard my extremely coherent, very, very stable argument as to why they shouldn't. Now it's your turn to decide who's the winner of this one. Head on to our Twitter, our Instagram, our Facebook, make those decisions for us. On top of that, while you're there, send us a message. Tell us what you think we should have for our next topic if that's debatable. If you've got any questions, send them in and we'll be able to answer them at this point in the end of the show. But with that, it is time for the segment that the show is named for, Chicken Salad, Chicken Shit. Todd, what do you want to start with, the good or the bad?
Well, let's start with the bad because then we can end the show on the good. It seems like they go out on a high instead of saying this is shit, let's go home, see you later. All right, so you start, mate. I'll let you go first.
I'll fire away, mate. Chicken shit is something we predicted for AEW All Out. You were right. I was wrong. I hate saying that. Thankfully, I don't have to say it often. And you know exactly what I'm going to talk about here.
I do,
don't
yeah.
You? What am I going to say?
Because I saw you at Venom Pro, and it was the first thing I said to you.
Why? Chris Jericho, you do not need your win back. You do not need to beat MJF on a huge stage. It's totally unnecessary. Jericho is supposed to be the face in this feud, right? And he lost after he had taken on a hardcore match against Nick Gage where he got cut open with a pizza cutter. After a match against The Muscle, a match against a guy who could use chairs against him, a match where he had to take his old body flying off the top rope against an old rival, and then he could only lose the match while not being able to use his finisher, right? If he's the good guy, he should be able to come out and say, MJF couldn't beat me on a one-on-one match. That's obvious to everyone. And MJF as the heel will say, I won, you lose. That's fair and square. We don't need to promote this match where you're saying, oh, I'm going to never wrestle again and then I win. It's pointless. It's a waste of time. We don't need to give wins back. And I can't believe that I got suckered into hoping that I would not have to see this old man wrestle again. Points to MJF, as always, for being one of the greatest heels of all time, for his immaculate work. I'm sure you saw the entrance, Todd, where he had the big Y2J countdown, and then instead of Jericho's name coming up in the spinning font, came up Jericho's last match, and then MJF's music hit. Wonderful reason that MJF should be winning matches and not an ancient, decrepit mummy who needs to leave to go have a rock music tour for a little bit. That feels good to let out.
Do you watch What They Do in the Shadows at all?
I haven't watched the show. I've watched the movie, but not the show.
Okay. You know the energy vampire?
Yep.
I think
that's Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho is, except he's a shine vampire or a heat vampire.
Yep.
He sees anyone that's got a little bit of juice. People started talking about the American Top Team and their promos. Next thing this week on Dynamite,
he's right there.
He's an energy vampire.
Let's make that one of my chicken salad. Is if you haven't seen What We Do in the Shadows, go watch that movie. It's fantastic.
Yes,
I'm doing
the
my
TV
dark
show's
thing
great
on
as well.
eBay.
I haven't watched the movie yet. I've only ever watched the TV show. So
big recommend. We'll swap.
I love that show.
All right, what's your chicken shit? What's upset you this week, Todd?
Look, it was the AEW camera work this week because it was Max Caster, Brian Pillman in the main event for Rampage, right? They did a show. You know how they got those cool like GoPro cameras on ring posts?
Yeah.
They get the cool shot. Pillman was up there doing the 10 punches, and they cut to that camera where you can clearly see him not connecting at all with the punches. Now, if this was a live show, it was a live show. That's a taped show. So they can
fix that.
You've got days to edit that. And not only that, they replayed it again in the highlights on YouTube. That exact shot. And I'm like, why are you doing this?
So silly. All right.
But that was my
camera work's always a problem, whether it's done or whether it's AW showing. And
the worst thing is too, like, it's not, these aren't, and people are like, oh, they're a young company, and they're not, like, their backstage people aren't a young company. Like, I think it's Bruce Mitchell does the directing for AEW, who did WCW, who did TNA. He's been doing wrestling production for 20
company
years.
They've been around for a couple of years now. They should have learned this by now.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and one, I don't know if it's a chicken shit or a chicken salad. Last week's Rampage on Fight, they just put through the full show. They didn't do, it must have been like the feed from TNT or TBS, or I think it's on TNT. They didn't put so there was no ads in the Rampage. Like if you watch Rampage on Fight, it's that like Rampage comes up for 3 minutes while the ads are playing. There was none of that. Yeah. So in Australia, we finished 15 minutes before America did. So for 15 minutes, we spoiled the shit out of Rampage for anyone watching it because we didn't do the math in our heads. And we're like, oh, I can't believe that just happened. Oh shit, sorry.
All right. And let's have you go with your chicken salad as well, Todd. What did you enjoy this week?
A few things. So my chicken salad is wide. I have a wide salad this week. Big E winning the title. That's a big one. I really enjoyed the MJF promo this week where he did the whole, I want to talk to Brian Pillman. Oh, who am I kidding? Wake up, Brian. That was
Heat machine, that man. What a performer.
MJF, to me, showed what Britt Baker should have done when she went to Pittsburgh. Like, he went to New York. He should have been Newark, New Jersey, which is near Long. There's a whole, like, he's from that borough. So really, he could have got cheered. And he made sure to stick it to New York at the very start of that promo to make sure people know he's a heel. He did the exact thing that Britt should have done instead of playing into like being loved. Like, that's the same thing. If I was going to say another chicken shit thing, it would have been that Adam Cole is basically playing a babyface at the moment. Like, his words are somewhat heely, but he is accepting those cheers. He's egging them on where he should be not doing that as a heel. So anyway, that's
absolutely.
Another chicken salad. Loved NXT 2.0 because it is what they said it was going to be. They said it's going to be a developmental show. It is a developmental show. You saw the debut of a lot of new guys, a lot of new faces on that show. And over the next couple of months will grow as performance because they will get more time on the show to work on their stuff. And their stuff it's not the old NXT super indie style. It's what people will see on a well, he's going away there. It's what people are going to see when they watch a SmackDown one, when they watch a Raw, when they watch those shows. They're teaching them that WWE style. And it's what will help them succeed when they get to the main stage. That's what I liked about it. And all the guys that debuted on that show, none of them, in my opinion, looked bad. They didn't look like, why the hell did they sign this guy? So that is another chicken salad. A third one is something, this is a personal one for me, is that just searching YouTube, I found a lot of old Smoky Mountain Wrestling TV show eps. So I've been binging those for the last day and a bit. And it's all the stuff from like 94, 95. So like Tammy Lynn Sitch is there, Chris Candida's there, Balls Mahoney's there as Boo Bradley, Cactus Jack, Brian Lee, a whole lot of like the gangsters. And I didn't even know, and people might say this is silly, I didn't know D'Lo Brown was a gangster.
Oh, yeah.
He was one of the original
D'Lo
gangsters.
is one of the most underrated guys in a long time. D'Lo Brown.
100%. Fantastic. I just did not know he was one of the gangsters. And the stuff that they were saying in promos back then, there's no way they could get away with saying them now on TV.
Absolutely not.
Because there was a promo on one of these shows where Jim Cornette came out and he wanted to manage the gangsters because he was so happy that they were able to do what he was never able to do, and that is get rid of the Rock and Roll Express. And during the promo, like Jim Cornette said something to the line like, your ship has come in, I want to be your manager, blah, blah. And New Jack turned around and said, the funny thing is ships came in 400 years ago and stole my people from Africa. And I was like, holy shit. But it was amazing.
It's easy to forget what New Jack was doing when he wasn't trying to kill people for real. Like, there was some crazy stuff in there.
But yeah, I really liked that. Really liked watching those old episodes for me. And I was talking about this with a couple of guys, the Bro Day. I was talking about these shows. And this is...
Friends of the pod, Bro Day.
Friends of the pod. It is a genuine... They are is a genuine, like... slice of American, that's what I think of when I think of genuine American wrestling show, is that Smoky Mountain show. And I think personally that if you can mix that type of booking, that theory, that framework of a show with modern wrestling, in-ring wrestling, that it would still work today and it would be probably one of the better shows on TV.
I agree. Now, Todd, somehow I didn't tell you not to talk about it, but you managed not to talk about the best part of NXT 2.0 that I could not wait to talk about the minute I knew it. I knew it was going to be my chicken salad. The Index wedding. What a sensational, wonderful bit of absolute wrestling nonsense. Indy Hartwell, Dexter Lumis, finally tying the knot in. There's been some ridiculous wrestling weddings. This one was up there in terms of an in-ring stupid nonsense. We saw everyone get ready to object to their union and Dexter show off the axe in his suit jacket and everyone put their hands down. We saw, I love Johnny Gargano loving his new son-in-law and wearing the gloves. We had Ickerman with the rings in his jacket. We had Loomis choking out the priest and having Beth Phoenix run in from the commentary desk. We had
I still love that the whole, like, you can't be serious that you want to marry. You can't be.
Yeah,
that was so good.
And the fantastic, I cannot get enough of it. It's the meme I've seen the most this week is using the format of Loomis saying "I do," where Beth Phoenix asks if he takes Indy, and he says "I," and the whole crowd leans in, and then he says "do," and they go ballistic. It's the best. It's exactly what I want my wrestling nonsense to be. I absolutely loved it.
It was because they didn't try and swerve us. They gave us the wedding. They gave us what we wanted to see. And that was, it was so good. Even that stupid line from friggin' what's his name? If you got the rings, we're in a ring, silly. Like,
yeah. It's so bad, but that's exactly what you want from that character. You want to groan at that character.
Yeah,
fantastic. Like, that's how you do characters in wrestling. I'll also quickly put over, obviously, there's going to be a little wrestling on the way, and there was a really funny gender reveal video, or sex reveal video, I should say, where Johnny Wrestling gets a hold of the reveal balloon and starts playing with it with the dog. And Candace lets him know that that's the balloon from the reveal. And he says, but what about the plan with the, I've forgotten it now. Go check out that video because there's some fantastic wrestling nonsense in there. That's right. He had a plan where they were going to use a stork. And she says, how are you going to get a stork? And he says, I've got a guy. And she says, what's your guy's name? And he says, Mork.
Oh, Jesus. Man, you're right, though. That wrestling, that wedding was good. I can't believe I'd forgotten to mention that. But it's because I was so focused on the actual wrestling that the wedding didn't really,
And after my internet cutting out there, we are back. So great moment for it to happen. Hey, Todd. So with that, I want to thank everyone for watching.
So before we do, can we just do one? I'm just begging wrestling media for a while. Can you just give us a break on telling us when everyone's contract is expiring?
Oh my God.
I'm so over that shit. Like, I don't give a fuck. I've held off trying to swear this whole thing. I don't care. I'm sick of hearing, like, Kevin Owens expires in January. Johnny Gargano might be expiring soon. Oh, this guy just Pete Dunne just re-signed, so he's stuck now for 4. No, he's not stuck. He took a lot of money to do a job that he likes to do. Like, can we just please, for the love of God, stop talking about this just for a minute? And to the point where, like, this week I was like, I don't really give a fuck anymore. Just go. If you want to go, go. I don't care. I do not care.
There's enough companies out there that people can wrestle where they want to wrestle.
Exactly. I cannot. It's to the point now where somebody debuts, I'm just going to go, yay. I just don't care.
Look, for me, there's enough people in whatever company, wherever they want to wrestle, there's people I want to see everyone wrestle. It's fine.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do with your contract.
Yeah. Just go have fun.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So with that, and on that positive note, I want to thank everyone for listening or watching to Making Chicken Salad. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Wrestle Radio Australia. It's free. You can do it on YouTube. You can do it on Apple Podcasts. You can do it on Spotify. You can do it on Stitcher. You can do it anywhere where you listen to podcasts. If you do stop by Apple Podcasts, especially, please consider giving us a rating, giving us a review. If you hit that 5 stars, that really helps us get into more ears. That'd be fantastic. Obviously, Todd's over on that main Wrestle Radio Australia feed along with this show, and you've done a solo episode this past week. Is that right, Toddy?
Yeah, due to lack of guests. I apparently being able to talk to myself for half an hour, which was something I really didn't think it was going to happen. I was like, I'll maybe get 15 minutes out of this, and then because I just want to put something up because I was.
Don't worry, Todd.
Bad.
I could have told you could ramble for 30 minutes without a problem.
I felt kind of bad because I don't like normally if I go missing for a couple of weeks on a show, people will start messaging me asking me if I'm okay. So I was like, it wasn't that at all. It was just that guests weren't. Like I wasn't being able to. The guest I was lining up was Marcus Pitt, and Marcus kept having issues. Like on the day of we were recording, something would happen, and he's like, "I'm really sorry. It's fine. I'm not going to be an asshole about this. It's cool. It's all good. I'm just going to have to not do a show this week. That's great. That's fine." And then when it happened the second week, I'm just like, "Well, I'm going to have to do something." So
that's it. Yeah. So keep your ears out.
Yeah, make sure you follow us on, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe and the bell because then you'll know when our shows pop up on that. Follow us on Facebook, Wrestle Radio Australia, on Twitter, Wrestle Radio AU, also Instagram at Wrestle Radio AU. And
make sure you're hitting up those social medias so that you can vote on who won our It's Debatable this week. Make sure that you vote for me because it was definitely me. Also, you can leave us any questions that you would like that you think are worthy of us debating in that topic in the future, or if you'd just like us to answer on the pod.
Yeah, I'm glad you got no because I'm the one that still has to try and get booked around places.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You don't be telling promoters what they can and can't do. Hey.
No, wow, I do that enough. That's the problem.
So on top of that, make sure you're following Wrestle Radio Australia. And if you really like what we're doing, you can head on over to the Redbubble. Search Redbubble for Wrestle Radio Australia. You'll be able to find some wonderful merch with the logo on it. And if you do, all of the proceeds from that go to Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life, which are really fantastic charities who do a lot of great work for men's mental health specifically.
And I haven't mentioned it before because I'm going to spring it on him now. Maybe we might be able to get an extra little special show next weekend about the whole what happened on AEW this week because it's such a massive 2 nights of shows.
We'll see what happens on AEW. We'll see how my weekend's looking.
Yeah, we'll see how weekend's looking. So because normally by the time the second week happens, we've forgotten about half the shit we wanted to talk about.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So I'm not promising. I'm saying maybe.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. Tweet at us, yes. And we might make it happen. All right. So
tweet.
Also, for me personally, go check out Heat Sheet Mag covering everything that's going on in Queensland wrestling, or trying to. There's a lot going on. So with that, that's been Todd Eastman. I've been Lachlan Albert. Thank you for listening. Have a good one.